about my journey to the world of permaculture. I will talk a little bit about the practice and how my husband, John and I garden on our plot. We acquired the property in July of 2021 and straight away we could see the potential. The site is around 620 square metres, about 15% of an acre. The garden was roughly split into 4 quadrants. It has a due south aspect and St Mary's Church sits directly behind. The back had a woodland feel and was a little overgrown. The 2 lawns you can see were very tall. We also had an asbestos double garage and a tired small fence that needed replacing. The top of the garden had a very large flowering rhubarb and a small path. The wall and hedge from the church created a protected area from harsh winters. It creates a very different opportunity to grow woodland plants that would get fried in the south-facing front portion of the garden. In the first summer, we observed the site and came up with some startling scientific and mathematical conclusions, as you can see here. What we were now custodians of was a plot of land that had almost endless potential. And rather than becoming overwhelmed, I did a little bit, we became excited and I started to look online for inspiration. I had always loved to grow food and was already very eco-conscious. So when I stumbled upon a concept called permaculture, the stars seemed to align. Permaculture was coined around 1974 by Bill Mollison, a Tasmanian wildlife surveyor, amongst other things. It stands for permanent agriculture. During his surveying work, Bill was struck by the symbiotic relationships found in forests between animals, trees and plants. He also spent time with indigenous communities learning natural systems. These observations made him think, why don't we just copy nature in agriculture, farming and gardening? Permaculture is about sustainability, community, equality, biodiversity and regeneration. Like any concept and movement, permaculture has its own set of ethics. These are the 3 guides that practitioners use to stay on track when they are designing and maintaining. In earth care, we look to regenerate, create and improve soil, all in eco-friendly ways. In people care, we nurture ourselves, our families, friends, and the community. In fair share, we limit consumption and redistribute surplus. So I started to design our space with these ethics as my guide. I thought about how I could grow food to nourish my family, friends, and neighbours. We built a 20-foot polytunnel in 2022 and used many of the 5-ton slabs to create raised beds. We filled the beds with the overgrown lawn, thus recycling and taking care of the earth. We used our neighbour chick's fence, which had blown down in storm, to create raised beds, and again filled them with lawn. So we had some infrastructure in place, and some of the lawn had been repurposed. But if you remember going back to the mathematical equations, the 76% of overgrown lawn was our most substantial biomass resource. By taking away the grass, there was little vegetation in the soil to feed the microbes with exudates. Basically, the soil would start eating itself. I got carried away with my S's. Spot the spelling mistake. This created a challenge for our soil, as well as the opportunity of a blank canvas. What we needed was biomass. If you think of a forest, we needed roots in our soil, and we needed them quickly if we wanted to make compost and grow food. And so we looked to permaculture to solve the challenge. In permaculture, the ideal garden would have mature trees, shrubs, herbaceous layer, and so on. And a garden would replicate as closely as possible a forest, where leaves grow, fall, decompose and generate new vegetation, and they support animals, fungi, all of which mulches, feeds and fertilises the soil. So I had to grow a lot of mass, as much as I could, as fast as I could, still following the earth care ethic and without breaking the bank. So I just started planting annuals, and lots of them. We grew food biomass, such as sweet corn and sunflowers, and when things came up in the sale, I popped them in too. I scattered seed, any seed I could lay my hands on. I bought tiny plugs. I covered as much of the bare earth as possible, which I had exposed myself by removing the lawn. I grew great waves of nasturtiums for the bees and as a catch crop for caterpillars and aphids. I grew amaranth for colour, my seed bank and diversity. And I grew borage for wildlife and as a dynamic accumulator to mine minerals from deep in the clay with their taproots. We built makeshift compost bays and filled them with everything from our garden, our kitchen and from our neighbours as well. We used a lot of cardboard to cover the earth, suppress annual weeds and act as the carbon source in our composts. The worm population exploded, particularly due to the cardboard and no dig. When winter came of 22-23, we adopted the Back to Eden method and covered our whole garden in mulch of one kind or another. Either wood chips, homemade compost, manure, bedding, leaves, kitchen scraps, and the simple chop and drop method. We left roots in and let the worms do all the hard work. So the microbes were fed over winter, and we had created a disease-suppressive soil, one which protects plants from pathogens using diverse microbial communities. The increase of organic matter and minimal digging allowed the microbes to thrive and activate the plant's natural defence system. The soil was regenerated just like the Al Baida project run in Saudi Arabia for 8 years, as you can see here on the slide. We were now ready for the following year. We started to see harvests, and this was really exciting, and it spurred us on even more. We ate better, and we felt better. And so did our friends and neighbours. We started to create a little community. The first few years were not without challenges, believe me. We had a lot more plants and diversity, and with that came the critters. We had nights of 1,000 slugs, so I collected them up and rehomed them far, far away. We had plagues of sapsuckers, but I held strong and I changed my mindset. These were not pests, they were food. I added a lot of lugs, which of course brought even more pests, but also the hunters. I grew flat umbellifer flowers, which attracted even more predators. I let the ground beetles and the red soldier beetles, amongst others, do the job instead of sprays. We built soil health, and in turn our plants became healthier and were able to fend off attacks from pests and disease. It took a few years, but I was patient and found balance, because nature always seeks to find balance, we just have to leave it alone. So I delved deeper into permaculture and the methods of design. These are the 12 principles. Permaculture is a way of thinking, and for me and my husband it's a way of life. But for Bill and later David Holgren, their big idea was a nature-based design system. Areas big and small that have diversity, stability and resilience like the best preserved natural ecosystems. So I had been observing, catching and storing rainwater, obtaining a yield, making compost and producing no garden waste. But had I yet to use edges? Had I really valued diversity? And could I say I had integrated rather than segregated? An example of a principle I interpreted was the use of edges and the value of the marginal. I set about utilising my new 6-foot fence, thanks Dad. I planted all kinds of berries and currants, some common and some not so common. So my blackcurrant sat beside my Japanese wineberries and mingled happily. I planted nitrogen-fixing lupins and herbs all around them to act as a guild, which is a group of useful plants that all bring something different to the party. And I packed everything in tightly. There was no space for weeds. The earth was either covered by plants or mulch. The soil was fed constantly, and so the nutrient cycle continued. And then it happened. I fell into the rabbit hole. I was having such a great time and seeing the benefits of permaculture, I accelerated my learning, experimenting and applying further tools. Companion planting was great, but I wanted more, and so fruit tree guilds were added. Fruit trees are great, but I wanted a mini food forest. I was practicing no dig, but how could I accelerate my soil regeneration? So I built a wormery, just like this one here from above. These are just some of the tools permaculture enthusiasts use. They are practices which are carried out, guided by the 3 ethics, incorporating as many of the 12 principles as possible into one abundant, natural system. Last January, we added another 16-foot greenhouse to the site. The recycled greenhouse from Jimmy, our neighbour, will allow us to grow more diverse and less hardy food crops, such as pawpaws and pineapple guavas. Experimenting and pushing the boundaries of what is possible to grow is something I really enjoy. As the lawn has shrunk, the diversity, resilience and prosperity of the site has really grown. And my confidence has grown as well. Last year was our 4th, and we hit some great milestones, not least a sweet spot with a lovely food versus beneficial insect balance, which I wrote an article about for the Permaculture magazine. We also opened our garden twice, once to this lovely group and once to the National Gardening Scheme. We raised around £500 for charity, and I plan to do it again this year. Today the garden looks like this, but that's fine. It's given us so much, including a bumper crop of Christmas leaves. And hopefully come the spring, summer, it'll be bigger and better than ever. Thank you very much.